So can I just see by a show of hands, I'm going to assume you're here today because you've got big dreams, big goals, big aspirations. Put up 2 hands if they're really big, and if you don't have your hand up, have someone check your pulse. All right. Now, I want you to put up your other hand or both hands again if sometimes that dream, that goal, that aspiration scares the hell out of you. What if it does? Oh, there's 2 hands going up. What if it doesn't work? What if I fail? What if it goes wrong? So welcome to the world. You are human. This is normal. But the way I see it is you have 2 choices in life when it comes to that dream. You can either react to what's happening to you, or you can create what happens because of you. So as entrepreneurs, as business owners, as leaders, which is the better option, reacting or creating? Creating, absolutely. Let's get honest. What do you do more of on a daily basis? React. Okay, so again, congratulations. You are human. Reacting is how we survive life. Oncoming bus, jump out the way. That is a good reaction. You want to keep that reaction. But creating is how we thrive in life. It's how we get ahead. It's how we anticipate obstacles, opportunities. I mean, we've just heard Alon talking here about the amazing mindset we have to have when we're innovating, when we're pushing to do things differently. And so I believe that when we move from reacting to creating, we move from merely surviving to thriving. Does that sound good? Do you like that? Absolutely. I see I'm going, yeah, I want to do some thriving. So what I've seen in the 15 years that I've been working in businesses, helping people to think differently so that they can get different results, I've seen that whether you're reacting or creating comes down to mindset. And I know we've been talking a little bit about mindset today already, and you might be familiar with this concept of fixed and growth mindset. Are you familiar with this? Yeah? So fixed mindset is kind of failure is final, and I really can honestly say there's not one entrepreneur out there that has a fixed mindset. We have to have a growth mindset. We have to be able to fail forward, to do things differently. Whether we're in big businesses or one-man shows, that growth mindset is what makes the difference. Now, if I go into a business or if I'm coaching an individual, I can very quickly see what your mindset is by whether you are asking 2 questions or giving 1 answer. Now, you have asked these 2 questions in your life, and you have given this 1 answer in your life. I just want to see by a show of hands, have I got any parents in the room? Anyone with children? Okay, and if you didn't put your hand up, were you a child once? Yes, okay, so you know the answer to this question. What is that incessant question children ask all the time? Why? How mad does it drive you? They're trying to understand the world they've come into. And then when they become teenagers, they change that question. They add another word. I'm seeing if anyone's got teenagers. Why not? Okay, why not? Okay, so they're pushing back against what is and saying, I hear you, I hear your rules, but why not? I want to do it my way. As a result, by the time we grow up until we die, as adults, as business owners, as leaders, we have a 1-word answer to those 2 questions. What do we say? Because you can say it loud. And normally it's with, and I said so, because I said so, because those are the rules, because that's how it's done, because it's safer that way, because that's how our industry works, because that's how things are funded. Whatever our because is, it becomes our reaction to life. And I know you're all familiar with this concept, think outside the box, yeah? I'm going to tell you that true innovation happens when you think outside the because. Whatever your rules are as to why something can't happen, because it's always been this way, because we can't change it, that's what gets us stuck. And when people start asking, why are we doing it this way? Why not do it differently? That's when innovation happens. That's when we get innovation like Uber. Why not let everyone be a taxi driver? That question was asked in the 90s as a way to stimulate people to think differently. They were like, that's ridiculous. But it made sense in the 2000s as an innovation. Okay, so why am I so passionate about this? Well, it's because I had a fixed mindset. I was someone who was stuck in my because, and my life was not where I wanted it to go. Back in 2003, 2004, I was an aspiring musician. I wanted to be a pop star. I wanted to tour the world. I wanted to top the charts. I wanted to be interviewed by Oprah. These were small dreams, as you can hear. And it was like, how do I get there? And then I discovered my first major obstacle. It was going to cost me 300,000 Rand to record my first album. As an independent artist based in Cape Town, white English singer, where music was not topping the charts, I couldn't justify spending that money or finding that money or borrowing that money. So my reaction to that problem was to moan. I became one of those people that arrives at a party with their problem, and then they find someone and they spend the whole night telling them how hard their life is. Have you met someone like this before? I hope it's not you. Okay. I eventually got tired of my own story and I realized I had a choice. I could give up or I could get creative. That is always the choice. Which is the better option, giving up or getting creative? Get creative. That's why you're in this room. Absolutely. So how I got creative was I went and had a coffee with my sister, Kay. She's 12 years older than me, and she is my go-to person when I'm needing to think differently. She was very grateful when I said, I've decided to get creative and stop moaning. She said, fantastic. And we decided to brainstorm. And luckily for me, she had just finished reading a book called 6 Thinking Hats by Edward de Bono. Are any of you familiar with Edward de Bono's work? I see some hands. Are you familiar with the term lateral thinking? Okay, this is the man who coined the term lateral thinking. And in this little book, 6 Thinking Hats, it's a tool for strategic thinking. He shows you how you can think differently about an obstacle or an opportunity in your life. The amazing thing was she didn't have that book with her. We had a napkin, and it was simple enough for her to talk me through the steps and us to try and think about this 300,000 Rand I didn't have. And I know that's not a lot of money. Some of us are getting much bigger funding that we need. But for me, that was a mountain. So what we realized was I was not asking the right question about the problems I was facing. I was so focused on where I was and what wasn't working that I wasn't looking to the future and going, what's the extraordinary question I can ask that's going to get me extraordinary results? And this is what we call blue hat thinking. It's focusing our thinking on what we want, the problem we want to solve. And if you ask extraordinary questions, you are going to find extraordinary answers. Unfortunately, our brains like to ask safe questions, and then we get safe ideas. So my extraordinary question that day was, how do I record and market an album in South Africa without going into debt? So I put my problem into the question, and your mind loves a challenge, so you've got to stretch it with the questions you ask. Now I knew where I wanted to go. I had a desired outcome. How do I do this without going into debt? The next thing I needed to do was look at where I was. What were the facts about my current situation? Now, some facts are going to be positive, some are going to be negative, but you have to do a clear analysis of your current reality. Now, I knew that I didn't have 300,000 Rand. My bank balance could back me up on that. That was a fact. I knew that South African music didn't sell very well, but I knew that I had over 200 songs written. I had a band, I had a website. I'd lived here and in America. I had quite a big network. I didn't know how you got music into the shops. I didn't know how I got music onto the radio. So just that analysis, looking at my current reality, gave me action steps that I could be taking to move towards my desired outcome. The next thing Kay asked me to do was to put on what we call a red hat, which is, how are you feeling about your problem? Now, I'd had a long time to build up some feelings, but the trick here is you just name the feeling, you don't explain it. So I just listed them. I'm overwhelmed, I'm frustrated, I'm anxious, poor me. It was a long list. But what was beautiful is that when you name an emotion but you don't explain it, you take it out of here, you put it on a piece of paper, and that frees your mind up for you to keep thinking clearly. She then asked me to look in a direction that I hadn't looked in for 2 years. She said, Verity, what's working in your career? Now, I like to think I'm an optimistic person, but this was hard because I was in the habit of looking at what wasn't working. So I kind of looked and went, oh, wow, I have 200 songs written. I have a band. I have a website. There's less competition in South Africa. And just that small moment of looking at the strengths that I had going for me changed the way I was feeling. From there, we were able to look at what's not working. Black hat, if you understand De Bono's work. This I was a pro at. I don't have the money. South African music doesn't sell. The industry's in Joburg. I'm stuck in Cape Town. I had a lot of reasons why I couldn't move past my obstacle. But the beautiful thing was, because I had looked at the positives first, the negatives weren't as overwhelming. And that, for the first time in 2 years, freed me up to think differently and to put on what Debona calls the green hat. If anything was possible, what could you do? How could you innovate? How could you do this differently? And I suddenly looked at my situation mapped out on a napkin and I went, just because I don't have 300,000 Rand, why not leverage off the fact that my songs are written, I have a band, I have a website, and why not ask people to buy copies of my album before I record it? Now, I know all of you know what crowdfunding is, but this was 2005. That idea was called crazy then. We now call it crowdfunding. But she was the most amazing thinking partner, because instead of squashing that idea, saying, Verity, that's crazy, that'll never work, Kay said, awesome, how would that work? And I said, well, people will go to my website, they'll buy copies, they can tell me what songs to record, I'll involve them, we'll create it together. And she said, what else? Because it is much easier to tame a wild idea than it is to make a boring idea interesting. I really want you to think about this. It is much easier to tame a wild idea than it is to make a boring idea interesting. So I said, well, it's pretty different. No one's ever done this before. What if I make a difference? What if I give 10% of everything I raise to charity? And we decided that I would give 10% to people opposing women abuse, something that's very close to my heart, giving a voice to women in this country who don't have a voice, and to give the other 5% of that 10% to other artists. So a pay-it-forward scheme to help other people succeed. We had been thinking for 30 minutes. 30 minutes of thinking differently about the problem. I suddenly had a way forward. I'd been stuck for 2 years. I was going to ask people to buy an album I hadn't recorded. They were going to replace a record label, and we were going to make a difference for women empowerment and artist upliftment. 30 minutes of thinking differently. I had a way forward. I left that coffee, I was pumped, I couldn't wait to see if it was possible, but now lies the choice. You can be as creative as you like, you can have innovative ideas, but are you prepared to flirt with failure? Because when you take that step, when you take action, when you try, you're probably going to fail. And Alon was saying it takes longer than we realize, it's harder than we realize. But if you don't step out there, you're never going to know what you can create. So my first action step was to tell people about my idea. 2 things happened. Everyone in the music industry said, that's not going to work. That's not how music is funded. 2005, we didn't know where the world was going. Everyone who wasn't in the music industry said, why not? That's crazy. Let's help you get there. They designed me posters. I had Educor come on board to pay for printing these posters, putting them everywhere. I had the most amazing web developers come on board to build an e-commerce site. E-commerce was really early days in South Africa. And the 2 young men that came on to help me, and they were coding in the background, and they worked with me for 2 years and did the most amazing job of getting this project going. After the project had finished, they left the company they were working for to do their own startup. And I went to visit them because we were still doing database issues and getting things fixed. And they were living in a little house in Plumstead in Cape Town. And I went to visit them and I was like, what is that? You guys have left your business. What are you trying to do here? What's the startup you're working on? And they're like, well, we've got this idea that maybe we can sell really cool kitchen equipment online. Yuppie chef. I always say people who believe in someone else's dream are prepared to back their own dream as well. So Shane and Andrew built my e-commerce site. We got going with this project, and it taught me the most extraordinary lessons. One of the biggest ones was about 3 weeks after having had the idea. I was still in the talking phase. I went to a dinner, and I was sitting next to a guy whose name was Guy, funnily enough. It's a good name. And Guy said, Verity, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm a singer, I'm a songwriter. And he said, oh, do you have an album? Because people always ask that. And I said, well, no, but I've got this idea. And while I was speaking, he reached into his pocket, he pulled out 150 Rand, and he said, I want to buy the first copy. That was a moment. I had my first customer. I was going to have to commit to the idea and see if it was possible. And I looked at the money, and I looked at him, and then I asked the obvious question, which was, Guy, why are you buying my album? You haven't even heard me sing. And he said, Verity, isn't that the whole point of your project? I said, yes, it is. Give me that money. Let's do this. But Guy taught me the most incredible lesson that I think all of us in business can learn from. And that is that your word creates your world. The way you speak about a dream, about an idea, about a goal, about a destination, the passion that you put into the way you communicate that, that impacts who gets on that journey and goes with you on the ride. And the more I told people I was selling an album that didn't exist, the more I started to sell it. I called it the Lucky Packet Project because no one knew what they were going to get, but we were in it for the ride. I had one of the first blogs in South Africa. It was an absolute first on so many fronts. Long story short, because it was a long story, over 2,000 people in 25 countries bought that album. They said yes to my crazy idea. The story went virtual in its own way. I still have no idea how it happened. Wits picked it up as one of their MBA case studies on early viral marketing. But people loved that they were part of creating this with me. When I released it in 2007, they sent pictures, poems, postcards. I even received a proposal from a man in Edinburgh. But I thought he wanted to make more than an album, so I had to say no. But because of my fans and my customers believing in the idea, we were able to give 30,000 Rand to the charities. We were able to go into Powers shelters, buy them linen, crockery, cutlery. And I was able to share that with my customers, with my fans, while the project was unfolding. They waited 2 years for their album, but they saw that I was making true on my word as we went. I was able to pay for 2 singers to record their first demos. And in fact, pictured there on the side is Mimi Ntenjua, a beautiful young jazz singer that I met at a braai. She was graduating from UCT Jazz School, and she said to me, when I graduate, I want to do original music. And you're probably going to meet people like this here today, but when you meet someone and you're still thinking about them a few days later because they're so cool? Mimi's that kind of person. A few days later, I got her number, I phoned her up, I said, I know this is crazy, but I'm doing this project. Can I give you money to record your demo? And there was silence on the end of the phone, and she said, Verity, you haven't heard me sing. And I was like, Mimi, that's how this project works. She landed a deal. She moved to Johannesburg. In 2010, Metro FM voted her best young jazz artist. How cool is that? Yeah, give her a round of applause. And this is maybe a good place to say, you all know I didn't become a famous pop star. You do get that. That part of the dream did not work out. What happened was I became a lot more famous for innovation, for thinking differently. I was suddenly being invited to speak at events like this, and I'd say, can I bring my band? And they'd say, no. Just come teach us how to think differently. I was like, damn it, that wasn't the plan. But the lesson was that sometimes your ego's got a destination in mind, and your soul has another one. And I believe that when we get on the road that our soul has planned for us, that's when life gets easy. So it was a big lesson for me. It brought the most unbelievable media attention. If Carte Blanche ever call you, you're either doing something very right or very wrong. Luckily, they loved it. They called me Virtual Verity. It was picked up by HSBC Bank in the UK. They put me at number 25 of their top 100 business ideas. They called it Involve to Solve. We now call it crowdfunding. And I even ended up in a James Bond novel. Sweet Lord, Carte Blanche, based in Cape Town. People started messaging me saying, do you know you're in a James Bond novel? I was like, what? And of course I bought it and checked. And sure enough, Singer Verity was singing at one of the events with James Bond. So I'm officially South Africa's first Bond girl. I'm just putting it out there. But I got hold of Jeffrey Deaver, the author, going, what on earth? He said, I came to one of your shows. I loved what you were doing. And I thought, wow, if I hadn't stepped out my front door, if I hadn't taken a risk, none of this would have happened. But the big moment for me was when I got a picture of Edward de Bono holding a copy of my album. My story was sent to him. My sister and I met him on his last ever visit to South Africa. He unfortunately passed away last year. He invited both of us to start teaching his work. And so it's taken me on the most extraordinary journey of helping people to change their thinking so that they can change their results. And Dila, how much time do I have left?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay, so just to bring this together for you, for your dream, for your goal that we spoke about earlier, if you do not design your future, someone or something else is going to design it for you. And I know you're in this room because you want to design your future. So the framework for doing that is if you think of your business, of your dream as a destination, as a road, as a journey, start by looking to the horizon. Ask yourself, what is my desired outcome? Frame it as an extraordinary question. How can I? Put some stretch in there so that it gives your brain some work to do. Then come back to where you are on the road and get clear on your current reality, trends, socioeconomic factors, competitors, whatever it is that's affecting your journey. Be honest about how it makes you feel. Name the feelings, don't explain them. And then please spend a lot of time looking at the strengths you can leverage to take you forward. Get real about the weaknesses, the potholes that you need to fill in. But that's the joy of being an entrepreneur. When you fill in that pothole for other people, that's when you move forward. But the thing that's going to take you forward is your ideas. When you give yourself the freedom to think differently, to ask new questions, to consider new ways of doing things, surround yourself with a community who believes in that desired outcome, who lets your word create your world, who take you on a journey where, yes, you will fail forward. Yes, it's going to take longer than you expected, but it will change your life. And so the bottom line is, as entrepreneurs, my invitation to you is be passionate about where you're going. That passion is going to take people along for the ride. Leverage the community and build your community around you. When you communicate with them, when you get them excited about that common destination, they are the people that will fuel your success. You might be creating that community here today. And last but not least, the biggest lesson for me in this entire journey was to have an attitude of gratitude. It is hard being in a business. It is hard doing a startup. It is hard scaling up. But if you cannot be grateful for the success you're having here, trust me, you're not going to enjoy the success you get to later. When you say thank you to the people that are helping you get there, when you say thank you to the customers that are buying what you're doing now, that's going to give you the energy to move forward. And I hope that you take that energy into that dream that you put 2 hands up about earlier, and that you let your thinking today affect your success tomorrow.